estimation of the probability of the individual events. And then we talked about the principle of relative frequency. We said that if we repeat the experiment many times, then the probability of an event is roughly speaking, or equal to or close to the number of times the event got repeated divided by the number of times the experiment was repeated. After that, we talked about continuous outcomes, and we stopped there basically. Now, if we have a fair wheel, or what we call a fair of chance, where it can stop at any number between 0 and 100. So it is either 0, it is larger than 0, and continuous until 100. So it can take any real number between 0 and 100. We said that we asked the question about what is the probability that the pointer falls between two values, x1 and x2. And we may answer that if we divide the range into n segments, then basically the probability, by calculating only the area of every segment, then the probability of every segment will be 1 over n. And hence the probability that the pointer falls between x1 and x2 will be the width of that period, which is x2 minus x1, divided by the width of the sample space, which is 100. And hence it's equal to x2 over x1 divided by 100. Okay. Now, we mentioned last time also that if we have a continuous sample space, then the probability of a discrete event will be 0. For example, the probability that x equals 5.67 مثلا. We said that this is not impossible. It can happen because if you rotate the wheel, it has to stop at a number. It can be any number between 0 and 100. So this is not an impossible event, 5.67. It can happen. It's a possible event. However, because it's our number, one number out of uncountable set of numbers, then the probability of this event is 0. Okay? It's 0 because it is very unlikely to happen. However, it is possible to happen. At the end, if you rotate the wheel, it has to stop at a number, Okay? So it is for example, if it stopped at this number and you rotate it again, it is very unlikely that it will happen again. So it is not impossible, but it has a probability of 0. واضحة شباب الفكرة هذه؟
Doctor, you mean infinite values when you say continuous, right?
Infinitely uncountable values, yes. And because of that, the probability of x, the wheel stops at this number, is 0. It's one number divided by infinite uncountable numbers, which is 0.
Because it's extremely unlikely, right?
Exactly. It is possible, but it is extremely unlikely. Now, on the other hand, so this is different than the impossible event. We need to understand the impossible event, which is phi, is 0. If you rotate the wheel, it cannot not stop at any number, It has to stop at a number. So the impossible event, the phi, is impossible. It has a probability of 0, but this is different than the previous case. Okay? The phi not having a number is impossible. You have to stop at a number. واضحة الفكرة هنا? Let's talk about the other dual idea. Now, the probability of the wheel stopping at any number except 5.67. يعني مثلا the probability that x is not equal to 5.67. Not equal to. يعني هنا السؤال, what is the probability if I rotate the wheel that it stops at any number between 0 and 100 except 5.67?
1.
It's 1. Why?
Because there's small chance to not get that number.
Exactly, because from 0 to 100 is very, very large numbers compared to this number only. So it's very unlikely that the 5.67 happen And because of that, the probability of x not equal to 567 is equal to 1. Again, this is different from the certain event. Certain event, which is S, is also 1. However, the certain event must happen. Although the 5.67, it can happen, still the probability is 1. Like S must happen. If you rotate the wheel, you must get a number from 0 to 100. واضح؟
Yes.
طيب, let's take an example, which is having 2 dice. And we throw 2 dice, and we look at the 2 numbers that we get, and we sum them. So the sum of the outcome of 2 dice. This is the experiment. You throw 2 dice, and then you look at the sum of the numbers at their faces. And we define some events here. Event A is the sum of the 2 faces equals 7. Event B, the sum is strictly larger than 8 and less than or equal to 11. Event C, the sum is strictly larger than 10. Okay, and let's try to find the probabilities. First of all, this sample space, how many outcomes it has?
36.
36, right? Because you have 2 dice, you can have 1 to 6 in the other. So basically 6 to the power 2 is basically 36. Okay? Now the probability of any element in the 36, so the probability of, for example, having 2, the sum, which is 1, 1. 1, 1. What is the probability of this?
1 over 36.
1 over 36. Exactly, because the 2 dice are fair, and hence they are equally likely to produce. Every die is equally likely to produce from 1 to 6. The second die is equally likely to produce from 1 to 6. And hence, it is equally likely to get any of these 36 outcomes. So the probability of every outcome here in the matrix that you see is equal to 1 over 36. Now let's look at the first event, A, the probability that the sum equals 7. When does the sum equal 7? When you have 1, 6,
4,
2,
3,
5, yes,
4, 3,
4, 3,
3, 4,
yes,
5, 2, 2, 5,
and 6, 1, 1, 6. How many of these you have?
6.
6.
6, and they are illustrated here in the green part. Okay, and because it's 6, then the probability is 1 over 6 over 36, which is 1 over 6. Or you can use the third axiom, because every one of these events, which is 1, 6 or 6, 1, 2, 5 or 5, 2, 3, 4 or 3, 4, 4, 3, are mutually exclusive. They cannot happen at the same time, right? If I throw the dice, the first one can be 1 and the second can be 6. At the same time, it cannot be 2 and 5. So they are mutually exclusive. And because of that, you can write A as the probability of the union of the 6 events comprising A, which is 1, 6, 6, 1, 2, 5, 5, 2, 3, 4, and 4, 3. And because they are mutually exclusive, we can write their union probability as the sum of the individual probability, which is 6 multiplied by 1 over 36, sorry, which gives you 1 over 6. واضحة؟ Similarly, we can find the probability of event B. B tells you that, or the event B is the sum is strictly larger than 8 and less than or equal to 11. And you can see that this is illustrated in this circle, or in this set of events. You can have 9s. تفضل.
Doctor, here B is a discrete value.
I mean we cannot have 8.1 and 8.
طبعا كله discrete يا شباب. نحن we said that when the sample space is discrete you cannot have events that are continuous. But the vice versa is correct. When you have continuous sample space you can have discrete events. تكلمنا عنها قبل كده الحصة الماضية. Excellent question. طيب. So the probability of B, simply you need to count how many elements in B. You can have 9, which is 6, 1. You can have 9 as 5, 2. Sorry, 5, 4, 6, 3, and 3, 6, and 4, 5. And you can have 10, and you can have 11. So the number of elements here is 4 9s, 3 10s, and 2 11s, which gives you 9 elements in B. And because they are 9, the probability of B is 9 over 36, which is 1 over 4. Okay? شباب?
Clear, Doctor.
Okay, Doctor.
ممتاز.
Clear.
The probability of C is the sum is strictly larger than 10. Strictly larger than 10, we have only how many? 11
3.
and 12
3.
only.
Yes.
So 3. Excellent. And because of that, the probability of C is 3 over 36, which is 1 over 12. تمام? Now, what is the probability of A intersect B? شباب؟
It's the same.
0.
لا زيرو اتوقع زيرو.
زيرو
right?
دكتور. زيرو
ما
مرة.
Why? Because they are mutually exclusive. You cannot have the sum equal 7 and at the same time the sum is strictly larger than 8. And you can see the circles here. They are non-overlapping. A will be. What about probability of B intersect C?
Two.
Probability cannot be 2 يا شباب.
1 over 18.
Yeah, it's 2 over 36. Why is it 2? Because we have 2 common elements here.
Yes, 11 and 11.
Yes, 2 over 36, which is 1 over 18. So what about the probability of B union C? Can we write that this is equal to the probability of B plus the probability of C?
Yes. No,
Yes,
because they are not mutually exclusive.
Yes, this is not equal to the summation of this because they are not mutually exclusive. Be careful, Shabab. The third axiom applies only when you have mutually exclusive events. The probability of B union C is the probability of, you need to count the common elements in both. And you can see that we have 10 common elements. 4 9s, 3 10s, 2 11s, and 1 12. So 10 over 36, which is 5 over 18.
Doctor, can you repeat this point, please?
Yeah. نحن نتذكر axiom of probability. We said that if we have mutual exclusive events, then the probability of the union equals the summation of the individual probability. Right? However, here B and C are not mutually exclusive. There is a common element اللي هي 11s. C is the sum is strictly larger than 10. B is the sum strictly larger than 8 and less than or equal than 11. So the 11 here is the common factor between them. And so because of that, you cannot say that probability of B union C equals the probability of B plus the probability of C, because there are repeated items between them. There are common items counted in B and counted in C اللي هي 11.
واضح ده.
واضحة؟ So this is not equal to the summation of the probabilities, individual probabilities.
تمام.
تمام.
دكتور.
تفضل.
The probability of B intersect C, I think it's 1 over 36, isn't?
B intersect C.
إيه. تحط 2 لأن بس ال 11 اللي بينهم مشترك.
أيوة.
هو 2 ولا 1؟
لا 2 مرتين ال 11. خلينا نمسح مكان ال 11. ال 11 you have two values 6 and 5 and 5 and 6. تمام. دي هي هذه اللي I'm shading الآن. طيب other questions شباب؟ طيب let's have another example. You have a box that has 80 resistors, okay, in total. However, these resistors have different resistivities in ohms, as in the schedule, as in the table above. The resistivity, when you have 18 with 10 ohm resistivity, you have 12 resistors with 22 ohm resistivity, you have 33 هذا النمبر ها 33 resistors with 27 ohm resistivity, and you have 17 resistors with 47 ohm resistivity. Okay, all of them have the same size and shape. However, only the resistivity is different. Now, in the box, you just enter your hand and you pick a resistor out of the 80. What is the probability that you draw a 10 ohm resistor?
18 over 80.
80. It's over 18 over 80. Let me add another thing here, which is total. 80. Huh? It's 18 over 80. So the probability that you get a 10 ohm resistor when you pick a resistor at random is 18, which is the number of 10 ohm resistors divided by the total, which is 80. Resistor to be picked is their number, which is 12 over 80, right? واضحة؟
Yes, Doctor.
The probability
Yes,
of
Doctor.
27 ohm resistor is their number, 33 divided by 80. And the probability of 47 ohm resistor is 17, which is the number of 47 ohm resistor, divided by 80. Now, what is the probability that you pick a resistor with less than or equal to 25 ohm?
30 over 80.
It's equal to how much? 30
over 80.
How did you find that?
We add 20 ohms and 10 ohms, the number of
Yes.
these resistors, which
So
is
it's
30.
excellent. It's the probability of 10 ohm plus the probability of أو خلينا نكتبها one
22.
step ahead. It's the probability of 10 ohm union 22 ohm, right? And because they are mutually exclusive, you cannot pick 10 ohm and 20 ohm at the same time. So it's equal to the summation of 10 ohm plus the probability of 22 ohm. واضحة الفكرة هنا؟ Which is 18 over 80 plus 12 over 80, which is 30 over 80. تمام؟ Okay. طيب. Now, this was done because they are mutually exclusive, disjoint. If they are not disjoint, you cannot convert the union into the summation of probabilities. You cannot do that. واضحة الفكرة هنا يا شباب؟ طيب, now let's talk about if I can pick twice. I pick the first draw. In the first draw, I get a 22 ohm resistor. Okay? And without replacement, so without replacement means what? What I picked in the first time, I will not put it back again. Okay? So in the first pick, I picked 22 ohm resistor. Okay? Now, What is the probability that I pick 10 ohm resistor after I picked 22 ohms resistor?
Be higher.
Yeah, higher. How much? What is it? شباب, this is
18
without
over
replacement.
79.
الشيء اللي the resistor that I picked before, I will not replace it again. I will not put it again. تفضل.
18 over 79.
It's 18, which is I have 10. If I pick in the first time 22 ohm resistor, then I am left with how many resistors in total?
79.
79.
79.
So the new sample space has 79 resistors. However, how many 10 ohm resistor I have? Still, I have 18, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
the probability will be 18 divided by 79. طيب. What about the probability that I pick, after I picked the 22 ohm resistor, what is the probability that I pick another 22 ohm resistor?
11 over 79.
It's
Because
what is
without
left.
replacement.
79.
Yeah, the total left is 79 becomes. And what is left out of the 22 ohm resistor is 11. So it's 11 over 79. طيب, what about with replacement? If I pick 22 ohm resistor and I ask you, what is the probability that I pick a 27 ohm resistor? Shabab, send me by the private chat. So here with replacement, huh?
Can you repeat the question, please?
With replacement, I will write it. What is the probability that I get a 27 ohm resistor, okay, given I picked a 22 ohm resistor with replacement. With replacement معناها ايش? What I picked, I put it back again. واضحة يا شباب السؤال؟ What is the probability if I pick in the first time 22 ohm resistor, I replace it back, put it back, and then what is the probability that I pick a 27 ohm resistor? Okay, great. Everybody sent already? So this is equal to the number of 27 ohm resistor divided by 80, because I am replacing, so nothing changes in the sample space. Now the way we read this is given that. Okay, the way we read the dash, the perpendicular line that you can see in the question here, the way we read it is given that. So the way we read it, what is the probability that I pick 47 ohm resistor given that the first pick was 22 ohm resistor? Given that معناها it happened already. And you need to distinguish between without replacement and with replacement. Without replacement means that the sample space is different, because what you picked changed the number of resistors in the box. However, with replacement, nothing changes. The same sample space exists. Okay? Questions, Shabab? طيب, let's go to the next section اللي قلنا عنه اللي هو discusses the joint and conditional probabilities. We will talk about joint probability, conditional probability, total probability, and the Bayes rule or Bayes theorem. These are the 4 topics that we would like to talk in this section. Now the first is the joint probability. Joint probability تكلمنا عنها قبل كده many times, which is the probability of union or intersection of events. So for example, the probability of the union of 2 events A and B We said that if A and B are mutually exclusive, the probability of their union will be probability of A plus probability of B, right? This is if they are mutually exclusive. But if they are not, the probability of A union B will be the probability of A plus the probability of B minus the probability of the common elements between A and B, which is the intersection of A and B. Okay? Why is that? You can see in the Venn diagram here. When you calculate the probability of A union B, you calculate the elements in A, which is probability of A. You calculate the elements of B, which is the probability of B, right? However, there are common elements, A and B, that were counted twice in probability of A and probability of B. So you need to subtract them once, which is the last minus sign here. Probability of A intersect B. Okay? And you can see in that example here, the probability of B union C اللي اتكلمنا عنها. You can write it now as the probability of B plus the probability of C minus the probability of B intersect C.
Doctor, in this case, they have to be mutually exclusive, right?
Yes. No. And when we apply the general rule with the minus sign here,
Yes.
this applies to any two events. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. When you don't have the last part here, which is only the probability of B union C equals the summation, in this case, they have to be mutually exclusive. No repeated items between them.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Like for any two events, their union, of the probability of their union equals the probability of the first plus the probability of the second minus the probability of the common factors, the whole intersection. You will apply it here. The probability of B was what? 9/36, right?
Yes.
Probability of C was what? 3/36. Minus how many common elements in between?
2/36.
2/36. Which gives you 10/36.
36.
Which is the same as what we have done before. 10/36. Okay? Now from here, you can just take the union and the intersection, exchange their places on the two sides of the equation, and you can get the probability of intersection of two events, A and B, equals the probability of the A plus the probability of B minus the union, the probability of the union. So here, what it says is the probability of the union of events never exceeds the sum of the two probabilities. You cannot have the probability of union larger than the probability of the sum. So there is always here less than or equal. The probability of union of two events is always upper bounded. It's always upper bounded by the summation of the two events. Okay? Now this is what we call joint probability. So joint probability is related to the probability of the union of two events or more, or the intersection of two events or more. What about the conditional probability? Conditional probability is related to the example that we gave you last time. The given here. This is a condition. The given here is called a condition. Condition, it means that it happened already. It occurred. So let's go back here. What is the probability of an event A given an event B has happened already? it's equal to the probability of the intersection between A and B divided by the probability of B. Of course, given that, yani, assuming that the probability of B is strictly larger than 0. So the B is possible. So it means that B is possible with non-zero probability. Yeah, don't make a condition that with the B, which is the condition, has zero probability. ما له معنى. إيش معنى إنك تقول لي what is the probability of A given B happened and B has zero probability? There's no point. This is undefined. Okay? Because B cannot happen here or has a zero probability. Now what happens if A and B are mutually exclusive? So A intersect B is phi. In this case, ايش رايكم يا شباب؟ Why the probability of A given B is 0 here? If A and B are mutually exclusive.
Because the probability of the intersection equals 0.
Yeah, this is mathematically. لكن خلينا نقول logically, physically, why?
Because they are disjoint. There are no common elements between them.
So, what?
So the probability of the intersection is 0.
طيب انت ترجع هنا للماث. Fine, mathematically correct. What you have done is great. Logically يا شباب, why? Give me a reason, logical reason. They are mutually exclusive, right? So if B happens, can A happen? They are mutually exclusive. There are no common elements زي ما قلتوا.
Yes.
If B happens, can A happen? يعني خلينا نقول هنا نرجع للدايس.
cannot happen.
نرجع للأومز.
We don't know.
لا you know. نرجع للدايس هذه. 10 ohm and 20 ohm resistor picking a 10 ohm or 22 ohm are disjoint events. أنا لما أدخل يدي وأطلعها يا إنه يطلع لي 10 ohm يا يطلع لي 22 ohm. صح ولا لا؟
Right.
They are mutually exclusive. Right?
Yes.
Right.
So now, if I pick a 10 ohm resistor, لا خلينا يعني هذا يمكن مثال شوية هيلخبطكم أكثر. خلينا ناخذ ال sum of two dice. If I say that A happens, A happened, so I roll the two dice, I get the sum is 7. خلاص, it's done. Can I get the sum? Can I get C? So I'm asking here, what is the probability of C given A? Given the sum is 7, happened already. What is the probability that I get C?
0.
0.
Why? Because A and C have no common elements. If A happened, C cannot happen. خلاص انتهينا. It's great يا شباب to understand الماث وتطبقوا الماث ممتاز. لكن also for me it's always better that you understand the logic behind the math. What does physical meaning mean?
So, Doctor, in this law, he means the two possibilities are happening consequentially, not I mean at the same time, not consequentially.
So
for
at the same time,
example, yes,
طبعا at the same time.
not like the resistors example.
لا عشان كذا أنا مشيت على resistor.
Yes.
Because the resistor example I already give sequential experiments. Because of that it will confuse you. عشان كذا أنا رجعت هنا. When we talk about mutual exclusive events في الكلام اللي تونا تكلمناه, we are talking about at the same time. يعني one experiment, we have certain set of outcomes, certain events. الevents هذه هنا are mutual exclusive زي B, C و A. Given A, can C happen? No. And because of that, it has zero probability. نرجع على the ohm resistor. على الأوم example,
دكتور.
resistor example. Okay? Assume that هنا الآن I am picking only one time. Picking only once. عشان لا نلخبط بين اللي تحت. Picking only once. What is the probability that I get 10 ohm given I pick 22 ohm?
0.
0. It cannot happen. أنا يعني يطلع لي 22 يا يطلع لي 10. They are mutually exclusive. Only once هذه ها. في المثال اللي تحت هنا I am picking twice. عشان كذا we need to distinguish what is the experiment. Always ask yourself what is the experiment. واضح الفكرة يا شباب؟
واضح.
ممتاز. So all the three axioms of probability hold true for conditional probability. So الأكسيوم الأول اللي هو probability of A given B is larger than 0. والsecond is probability of S given B equals 1. والأخير اللي هو mutual exclusive events نفس الشيء كله hold. All of them hold. So the conditional probability is treated as the same as joint probability and the probability of one event. It has the same rules, the same axioms. Okay? Now let's have an example here. And in this example, it will clear to you why did we divide by probability of B here. Because as I mentioned, it's nice to understand, to learn the math and apply it. However, you need to understand why this is the case. Why the probability of A given B equals the probability of the intersection divided by the probability of B. Why is that? Okay, we will answer this in the example. So in this example, we have a box that contains certain resistors distributed according to this table. And then the resistors here, we have different ohms, 22 ohm, 47 ohm, and 100 ohm. And we can have accuracy of the ohm 5% and 10% اللي هو الايرور نسبة الايرور في الاوم. يعني مثلا عندنا 22 ohm resistor, 10 of them has 5% error in the ohm in the reading 22, and 10% have 14 of them have 10% error. Out of the 100 ohms, 24 have 5% and 8 only have 10% error, and so on. So here we have two different categories, الأوم والerror, نسبة الerror. Okay? Now you pick one resistor. And we define the event A to be drawing 47 ohm resistor. Event B drawing 5% error resistor. Regardless of the ohms, 5% error resistor. Event C, which is drawing a 100 ohm resistor, regardless of the error. Okay? Now, we have many questions here. Let's start with finding the probability of A, B, and C, كل واحد لوحده. بعدين the probability of the intersection between every two. بعدين the conditional probabilities. So let's start with the first one. شباب أول شيء واضح المثال؟
Yes, it's clear.
Yes.
Because if anybody has a confusion about the example, the composition of the sample space, it will be difficult to understand what's next. So if you have any question about what is the example exactly, I can repeat it if you have any question. طيب, so the experiment here is picking one resistor, one, huh? So now, what is the probability of A اللي هو drawing 47 resistor?
44 over 100.
Why is that?
Because regardless of the error, the number of the 47 ohm resistors are 44.
Out of 100 total. So
Yeah.
it's 44 over 100. Exactly. Thank you. What about B? What is the probability of B drawing a 5% resistor, regardless of the ohm?
62 over 100.
Yes, it's not the number of 5% error, the total number of 5% error divided by the total number of resistors. 62 over 100. Exactly. Thank you. What about C?
32 over 100.
32 over 100.
ممتاز. ممتاز. 32 over 100, which is the number of 32 for 100 ohm divided by 100. طيب, what about A intersect B? What does A intersect B? It means that we have 47 and 5%.
28 over 100.
Why? We take the
Total.
only the common element, 47 and 5%, which is 28 over 100. Thank you. What about B intersect C?
24 over 100.
sorry. Let me start with A intersect C. Sorry. بالترتيب بس عشان ما نلخبط.
0.
Why?
لأنها كلها أوم يا دكتور.
We cannot have 47 resistor and at the same time 100. احنا نطلع one resistor only. يا تطلع لي هذه يا تطلع لي هذه. Thank you. So it's 0. What about the probability of B intersect C? 5% and 100 ohms.
24 over 100.
24 over 100. ممتاز. طيب. So basically, the way we find the probabilities of the intersection is by looking at the common elements only, counting only the common elements between the events. زي ما سوينا هنا 47 و 5%. We look only at the common elements اللي هي 28 over 100. Okay? Now, let's talk about the question which is including which has the conditional here. What is the probability of A given B? Given the resistor that I picked is 5%. What is the probability that it has 47 ohm resistivity?
Is it 28 over 62?
28 over 62.
Yes.
Excellent. How did you find that?
It is because we are sure it is one of the 62 5% resistors, and so the probability it is 47 is the 28 over the total, which is 62.
ممتاز. طيب. So now the way we do it, thank you very much. The way we do it is the following. Given 5% means that the new sample space is 62, has 62 only possible resistors. Given the condition B, اللي هو 5% resistor, now the new sample space is what? Has only 62 elements. So when I ask what is the probability of A given B, I'm asking is what is the probability that I pick 47 ohm out of the 62 here? Because I already picked, I know B happened, which is 5% ohm resistor. Because of that, we have 62 as the new sample space. And hence, we said that probability of A given B equals what? The probability of A intersect B divided by the probability of B. This is because the new sample space is B. واضحة? Because of that, we divide by the probability of B. And hence, this gives you the common elements, اللي هي كم common elements between 47 ohm and 5% error? It's 28, right? Divided by, sorry, 28 over 100. Divided by how much? 62 over 100. 100 cancels 100, you end up with 28 over 62. This is mathematical. What your friend mentioned is the logical. Okay? واضحة الفكرة يا شباب؟ Any question? Because of that, we divide by the probability of A given B equals the probability of the intersection divided by the probability of B. Because the new sample space becomes B. Now, similarly, you can ask yourself, what is the probability of A given C?
Nothing, because both are ohms.
Because they are disjoint, then it is 0. What about the probability of B given C?
24/62.
Given C, excellent, thank you. Given C, I have 100 ohm resistor. So the new sample space has how many elements here? 32. Given C, given means, given that I picked already 100 ohm resistor. So the new sample space becomes 32. Now my question is, what is the probability that I pick 5% given that I picked 100 ohm? It's 24/32, which is equal to 24/100 divided by 32/100. Okay, which is equal to the probability of B intersect C divided by the probability of C. Okay, B given C. واضحة؟ Any questions شباب؟
Doctor, and
تفضل.
solving this problem, should we follow the logic only or refer to the mathematical equation?
براحتك. It's up to you. As long as you don't make mistakes. هي الفكرة هنا I'm emphasizing both because you are engineers. You are not in a math course here. You need to understand why this happened. Why do we divide by probability of B? Because this is a new sample space. You need to understand the logics here. لكن at the end, it's up to you. The way you feel comfortable, it's your choice. كل طالب له طريقته وكل طالب له يرتاح بطريقة معينة. It's up to you. As long as my advice is try both when you practice. See whether they coincide or not. هذا بيعزز الفهم أكثر. طيب, other questions? طيب, the last thing I would like just to mention before we leave is the total probability. The total probability, I don't think we can discuss this. It's already, I think time's up. So next time, inshallah, we'll continue with that. أي سؤال يا شباب على conditional probabilities? Any question?
دكتور
تفضل.
السؤال احنا في بداية الليكتشر قلنا ان فيها احتمالية الشيء انه يكون زيرو، البروبابيلتي تكون زيرو، وفيها اللي هي impossible قلنا بنتكلم عليها بعدين.
لا طيب. تكلمنا عليها already.
في الحالة هذه مثلا impossible ان ناخذ مثلا بعض ال probabilities، فكيف قاعدين نقول انه زيرو؟
معلش ايش قصدك it's impossible انك تاخذ بعض البروبابيلتيز؟
في المثال آخر مثال
مثال ايوه اعطيني what is your يعني give me what your question is. ايش الامبوسيبل هنا؟
مثلا A given C.
A given C yes.
احنا قلنا لو قلنا انها زيرو معناها انها possible بس extremely unlikely يعني.
لا this is impossible يا شباب. نحن اللي تكلمنا عنه هناك انه في مرات يكون عندك probability equal zero. It doesn't mean always when the probability is equal to zero that this is impossible. هذا اللي تكلمنا فيه. It doesn't mean always that it is impossible event. Okay. هذا متى؟ لما يكون عندك continuous and you pick a discrete event. لما يكون عندك continuous من 0 إلى 100 and you only pick 5.67. It is possible, however, it it has a probability of 0. لكن اللي اتكلمنا هنا فيه الكونديشنال هنا given C A cannot happen لأنه mutual exclusive. It cannot.
تمام وضحت.
تمام. طيب other questions شباب؟ The time is up. Those who would like to leave, we are done.
Thank you, doctor.